Why did Captain Cooper's coffee mug shatter like a gunshot on the hangar floor? Christina Bailey didn't flinch. She couldn't. For 18 months, she'd lived in the shadows, blending into the monotony of Fort Sandstone. Just another maintenance tech, just another uniform, just another pair of boots scuffing concrete under the desert sun. She had spent every day loading Apache rounds with the silent rhythm of someone no one wanted to notice. Invisible, forgettable, disposable. Until that second. Her shirt had ridden up as she reached overhead, the lower edge of her fatigue blouse catching on a bolt, barring a glimpse of skin that was supposed to stay hidden forever. Most would have seen nothing, just a tattoo, just ink. But Cooper wasn't most. He had seen it. He had recognized it. And in that instant, everything Christina had built, her disguise, her cover, her fragile anonymity, shattered with the mug on the hangar floor. Cooper's breath caught audibly, his sunglasses slipping down the ridge of his nose as though even his body betrayed shock. He stared not at her face, not at her hands tightening around the ammunition belt, but at the geometric ink that curled across the small of her back. A pattern no civilian could decode, a symbol no regular soldier should ever have laid eyes on. For him, it was memory. For her, it was exposure. Christina lowered her arms slowly, deliberately, tugging her shirt back down to reclaim the secret. The silence between them thickened, broken only by the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant clatter of mechanics working on other birds. Nobody else noticed. Not yet, but Cooper's eyes hadn't moved. And she recognized that look. She'd seen it on battlefields, in the faces of men who had glimpsed the impossible and lived to tell no one. It was the look you gave a ghost. "Sir," she said evenly, the word carefully balanced, as though even a breath too heavy might tilt suspicion into certainty. Cooper crouched, pretending to gather the fragments of his mug, but his voice carried the weight of recognition. "We need to talk." The moment passed. The rhythm of the hangar resumed. Tools clinked, mechanics laughed, young soldiers hustled between aircraft with the nervous energy of rookies. But inside Christina's chest, the rhythm had changed. The beat of her heart was no longer routine, no longer hidden behind the camouflage of ordinariness. 18 months, and now, she could almost hear the clock start ticking. At 5:30 hours, before the desert heat could suffocate the day, Christina's world had been a machine of precision. A belt of 30 rounds in her hands, the cool brass reflecting the hangar's fluorescent lights. Each round was heavy, dangerous, unforgiving. And yet she handled them with a gentleness that surprised even herself, like holding something fragile, glass-like. She didn't flinch when Sergeant Sawyer Nash barked at her from across the hangar. "Billy, you're early again." Nash always called her that. Billy, not Christina, not Bailey, Billy, a dismissive nickname, the kind you gave someone you never really saw. Christina had trained herself to accept it, to prefer it even. Being underestimated was a shield. "Couldn't sleep, Sergeant," she replied, her voice soft enough to fade into the background. Nash grunted and moved on. The world didn't need to know she could survive on 4 hours rest, or that sleep had become optional after 7 years in special operations. The world didn't need to know she could field strip an Apache's chain gun blindfolded. That world was gone, or supposed to be. Now, the tattoo on her back had cracked it open again. Private Boyd stumbled in 20 minutes later, hair messy, shoelaces half-tied, clutching a coffee he clearly regretted staying up late for. He looked at Christina with that mix of respect and awe young soldiers gave to anyone who moved with competence. "How do you always make this look easy?" he asked, hefting his own belt of ammunition with clumsy effort. "Practice," she said, then, softer, leaning closer so the lesson landed. "And respect. These don't care if you're tired. One mistake and someone doesn't go home." Boyd nodded, his face tightening with focus. She remembered when she had looked like him, too eager, too untested, too ready to prove herself. Now she only wanted to keep him alive long enough to learn judgment. That was the part of her cover, watching boys like Boyd stumble through mistakes while pretending she was no better than them. Pretending she was just another cog, when in truth, she had once been the blade. Warrant Officer Rivers Hart appeared next, crawling out from under the belly of an Apache with grease on his hands and 23 years of war etched across his face. He looked at Christina's work with an eye too sharp for comfort. "You do good work, Bailey," he said quietly, too quietly. "Sometimes I wonder where you learned to handle weapons like that." Christina's hands froze only for a fraction of a second before resuming their rhythm. She didn't meet his eyes. "Army taught me, Chief. Manuals, advanced tech school, nothing fancy." Hart didn't look convinced, but he didn't press. Not then. Still, his words cut through her. Good work gets noticed eventually. Exactly what she'd spent 18 months trying to avoid. The air shifted. Captain Cooper entered 30 minutes early for his flight, as he always did. Methodical, predictable. The kind of man who trusted his own eyes more than anyone else's reports. His aviators hid his gaze, but Christina had learned to read the man's posture. Relaxed but coiled. Confident but cautious. "How's she looking today, Bailey?" "All systems green, sir," she said, handing him the logbook, her voice even, her posture deferential, the mask firmly in place. He began his inspection. Every detail she had already checked, he checked again. That was the kind of pilot who lived long enough to have stories. And then came the moment. She stretched overhead, replacing a panel. Her shirt shifted. The ink caught the light. 3 seconds, that was all it took. Cooper's mug hit the floor, shattered, and everything changed. By 1400 hours, when she sat in the maintenance office waiting for him, Christina's nerves had calcified into something else. Not fear, not even dread, calculation. 18 months of silence had unraveled in 3 seconds. Cooper would come. He had to. Men like him couldn't let a ghost walk past without demanding answers. The door opened. He stepped in, shut it, activated the white noise generator. "I know who you are," he said. No preamble, no hesitation. His voice was tight but sure. She said nothing. "Syria, Firebase Echo, 18 months ago. My unit pinned down. 6 hours under fire until someone showed up." His jaw tightened. His hand shook slightly as he pulled a photo from his pocket, grainy, blurred, taken in chaos. But the figure was unmistakable. A soldier dragging a man toward a helicopter. The ink visible even through combat gear. "You took 3 rounds. They told us you died." His voice cracked on the last word. "But you didn't, did you? You've been here, hiding." Christina's throat tightened, but she forced the words out. "Maybe you're thinking of someone else." But the pretense was over. His eyes told her he knew the truth. The dead didn't walk among the living. But Christina Bailey, buried in classified files, written off with medals and a folded flag, was right there. Breathing, waiting. "Why?" Cooper whispered. "Why fake your death? Why come here?" Christina looked past him, out the office window, where the Arizona desert stretched endless and merciless. Because someone had sold her team's mission before it began. Because 5 good soldiers had died at Firebase Echo, betrayed by a leak inside the very system they trusted. Because the traitor was still out there. But she didn't say that, not yet. Instead, she let silence answer him. Silence was safer. For now. But something inside her shifted as she met his gaze. For the first time in 18 months, she wasn't invisible. And that, she realized, was more dangerous than any firefight she had ever survived. Why was Lieutenant Commander Stone suddenly interested in a maintenance tech he'd ignored for 18 months? Christina felt at the moment his voice cut across the hangar. Too sharp, too public, too staged. "Bailey, I need to speak with you about equipment requisitions." Her hands stilled, wiping grease onto a rag as she measured her response. For months, Stone had treated her like background noise, his polished boots clicking past without a glance. Now, less than 2 hours after Cooper had seen the tattoo, he was calling her out. Loudly. Christina straightened slowly, masking her pulse with a nod. "Yes, sir." He led her toward a quieter corner, his gait too smooth, too deliberate. Always keeping exits in his line of sight, hands loose but ready. A professional, then. Not just intelligence, but something deeper. Someone who understood. "There's been irregularity in ammunition consumption reports," Stone said, tablet in hand. Your signature appears on requisitions that don't match standard configurations. Christina accepted the device, her own handwriting staring back at her. The adjustments were real, minor modifications she'd made to based on whispered pre-flight chatter she wasn't supposed to hear. She'd called them efficiency tweaks. Stone was calling them evidence. "I follow the specifications the flight crews hint at, sir," she replied, voice even. "If Captain Cooper mentions terrain or expected engagement type, I account for that." "Cooper didn't request these," Stone said, his tone sharpening like a knife on stone. "You did on your own." The trap tightened. He'd spoken to Cooper. Recently. Maybe already about the tattoo, maybe fishing. "I interpreted remarks as guidance," Christina said softly, her posture deferential. "If I overstepped, I apologize." Stone studied her face too closely. Not like a commander reviewing a report, but like a man watching for micro-expressions, for the flinch, for the blink. Christina held steady, projecting nothing more than the mild unease of a junior technician out of her depth. "Your file shows basic training only," he pressed. "Where'd you learn tactical ammunition configuration?" The question hung like a tripwire. One wrong step and the whole disguise detonated. She gave him the most believable half-truth she had. Technical manuals, off-duty reading, seemed useful. He smiled faintly, but his eyes never softened. Before she could be cornered further, Boyd appeared at her elbow, sheepish with a clipboard. "Christina, sorry, Bailey, what kind of hydraulic fluid is approved for the new line?" The timing was divine. The interruption broke Stone's rhythm, forcing him to step back. "We'll continue this later," Stone said, tucking the tablet under his arm. "I want a full review of all your modifications." And then he was gone, his polished boots echoing like a metronome against her nerves. By 14:30, Cooper arrived in the maintenance office, still in his flight suit, sweat cutting lines through dust on his face. He closed the door and switched on the white noise generator. "I know who you are," he repeated, as if the words had been burning in his chest all day. She didn't deny it this time. Instead, she let him speak. "Syria, Firebase Echo. 6 hours under siege. You were there. You pulled us out, took 3 rounds and kept moving. They told us you were dead." He slid his phone across the desk. The photograph on the screen was dark, blurred, grainy, but the shape was there. A soldier dragging another to safety, ink just visible at the waistline. "That's you," Cooper said. His voice carried a strange mix, accusation, awe, grief. "I've been staring at that picture for 18 months, wondering why no one would tell me your name. Now I know." Christina exhaled slowly. The weight of his certainty pressed against her ribs. "And now what?" "Now you tell me why you've been living as a ghost, why you let everyone believe you were dead." Her throat tightened. She looked away out the office window. The tarmac shimmered in desert heat, Apache lined like waiting predators. Beyond that horizon lay the memory of Syria and 5 men who hadn't walked out alive. When she finally spoke, her words were careful. "Because someone inside this system sold us out. My team died because of it. The only way to hunt the leak was from the shadows." Cooper's jaw worked. He understood more than he wanted to admit. "Stone." She didn't confirm, but her silence was loud enough. The next morning, the base shifted. Orders rippled like static through the halls. Colonel Ward called an emergency briefing. Christina took her usual place at the back, half in shadow. She scanned faces the way she always did. Pilots in pressed suits, mechanics rubbing grease from their hands, intelligence officers pretending they weren't tired. She looked for tells, the small fractures people showed under pressure. Cooper entered separately, sliding into a row near the front. He didn't look at her, not directly. But when Ward strode to the podium, Christina caught the briefest flicker of his gaze. Recognition without exposure. Ward's voice cut clean through the chatter. "Intelligence indicates imminent terrorist activity in Phoenix. Water treatment plants, power substations. Threat level raised to Charlie." The room shifted, whispers, unease. Christina's pulse quickened. Phoenix was close, too close, and the timing was wrong. The moment Cooper had recognized her tattoo, the moment Stone had begun circling, suddenly there was a major crisis that demanded full operational lockdown. Major Cole took the screen, her presence crisp, efficient, steady. She mapped out satellite images, pointing to infrastructure at risk. And then Stone rose from his seat, tablet in hand, voice smooth. Our intelligence suggests the terrorist cell had access to detailed facility blueprints. Someone provided them classified municipal schematics. Christina's breath caught. The wording was surgical, carefully neutral. The implication, a leak, an insider, again. Her eyes scanned the room. Some faces hardened, some frowned, some glanced sideways. Suspicion was airborne now, invisible but everywhere. And Stone was steering it. After the briefing, Hart intercepted her with paperwork. Stone wants comprehensive maintenance records for all aircraft, 6 months' worth, immediately. Christina froze. 6 months of records would show everything, her tweaks, her deviations, her fingerprints. The very evidence Stone needed to build a case. When? She asked carefully. Hour ago, Hart said, grimacing. You know how intel types are, everything's urgent. Urgent, convenient, perfectly timed. She nodded and walked away, but her stomach burned. Stone wasn't fishing anymore. He was reeling. Cooper caught her near the hangar, masking their conversation under the cover of an invented malfunction. Bailey, he said, pitching his voice just low enough. Apache 3's ammo feed is throwing false flags. Can you check it? She followed him to the aircraft, ducking under its belly where shadows gave them cover. He didn't waste time. This Phoenix op, it stinks, he whispered, pretending to check panels. It's a cover, Christina murmured, hands moving with mechanical rhythm. Distraction, while Stone digs through my records. Cooper's jaw flexed. You think he's manufacturing the threat? I think he's cleaning house, she said, and I'm the loose end. The sound of footsteps ended the moment. Stone rounded the nose of the Apache, posture smooth, smile sharp. Problems with this bird? He asked, eyes locked not on Cooper but on Christina. Minor glitch, Cooper replied easily. Bailey's checking connections. Stone stepped closer, studying her hands as though they held secrets. Find anything unusual. Her rag slid across the metal, buying her half a second. Everything looks normal, sir. Probably just a sensor issue. Stone tilted his head. Interesting how certain faults cluster, almost as if someone with specific technical knowledge was manipulating the systems. The accusation was a whisper beneath his words, but it burned hot. Cooper shifted subtly, protective without being obvious. Are you suggesting sabotage? Stone smiled, professional, cold. I'm suggesting thorough investigation, especially when someone's skills outpace their documented training. The air tightened. Christina felt the walls of her cover close around her. For 18 months she had lived as nobody. And now, with every word Stone spoke, she was being forced back into somebody. A somebody who was not supposed to exist. Why did Corporal Willow Hunt walk into the weapons depot at the exact moment Christina was tracing the pattern of betrayal through requisition logs? The timing was too precise. Christina's instincts told her to tense, to prepare, to fold into invisibility again. But something about Hunt's eyes stopped her, the sharpness, the searching quality. Working late again? Hunt asked, voice casual, but her gaze the depot like a camera. Christina forced a small shrug. Stone wants reports by 800. Figured I'd get ahead. Hunt nodded but didn't leave. She lingered, scanning racks of ammunition, the way Christina handled her tablet, the orderliness of the space. Then she leaned closer, lowering her voice. I've been monitoring comms for the Phoenix op, she said. Some patterns don't make sense. Christina's fingers paused on the screen. She kept her expression mild, but inside, every wire of her nerves lit. Hunt had access. Access Christina had dreamed of, prayed for. What kind of patterns? Hunt's lips tightened, almost reluctant. The terrorist intel came through 3 separate channels, but all 3 trace back to the same origin. Someone duplicated sources to make it look credible. Redundancy disguised as legitimacy. It matched Christina's growing suspicion. The Phoenix threat wasn't organic, it was orchestrated. Maybe the threat is that credible, Christina said carefully, testing Hunt's reaction. Maybe, Hunt replied, but her eyes said otherwise. Before Christina could probe further, the depot door hissed open. Stone entered, flanked by Master Sergeant Ridge Fox, base security chief. His timing was surgical, as if he'd been listening the whole time. Bailey, Stone said, tone clipped authoritative. Sergeant Fox has questions. Christina straightened, calm but alert. Fox carried himself like a man who'd spent years separating lies from excuses. His lined face didn't betray hostility, only precision. We're reviewing supply chain irregularities, Fox said, notebook in hand. Your signatures on requisitions preceding missions by hours, sometimes before briefings were official. The accusation was naked now. Stone didn't even bother to hide it behind polite suspicion. I study flight patterns, maintenance schedules, Christina replied evenly. Predicting ammo needs is efficient logistics. Fox scribbled, his expression unreadable. Where'd you learn supply chain analysis? Self-study, Christina said. Manuals, courses, off-duty reading. Hunt's voice cut in before Stone could pounce. She's always been thorough, sir. I've seen her reading manuals when everyone else is playing cards. Stone's jaw tightened. Hunt's defense had undercut his careful build-up. Thank you, Corporal, he said, tone clipped dismissive. We'll handle this from here. But Hunt didn't leave. Instead, she fabricated an excuse about needing Bailey for communications specs. Fox accepted. Stone did not. His eyes lingered, dark and calculating. When he finally left, Hunt turned back, lowering her voice to a whisper. He's not just fishing, he's framing you. Christina stared at her, caught between gratitude and caution. Why help me? Hunt's gaze held steady. Because your story doesn't fit. If you were leaking intel, you'd hide it better. You're watching, not betraying. I think you're investigating. The words cut close, too close. Christina didn't answer, but something in her silence told Hunt she was right. 2 hours later, alarms blared across Fort Sandstone. MPs converged on the communications center, sirens slicing through the desert night. Christina watched through the depot window as personnel in suits carried sealed containers. Her secure phone buzzed. Cooper's message glowed across the screen. Hunt arrested. Classified material in her quarters. Stone leading investigation. You're next. The trap had sprung. Christina's jaw clenched. Hunt's crime was too neat, too convenient. Evidence planted with surgical precision. Stone was eliminating threats, one by one. Her depot walls felt suddenly smaller. Reinforced concrete designed to keep munitions safe now kept her isolated. The intercom crackled. Colonel Ward's voice, heavy with command. All personnel report for mandatory questioning regarding classified breach. Christina's chest tightened. Questioning meant Stone, and Stone meant death, not the kind with bullets, but the slow erasure of reputation, of cover, of credibility. He'd grind her down with evidence she couldn't disprove, paint her as the traitor he was hunting to protect himself. Her options collapsed into two: surrender or reveal herself. She activated emergency protocols. The depot's blast shields dropped with a metallic groan, sealing her inside. From the outside, Stone's voice echoed through the speakers, sharp with feigned authority. Bailey, open the door immediately. You're making this worse for yourself. Christina keyed the mic. Explain how Hunt accessed files while she was standing next to me. Silence crackled, too long, too telling. You're interfering with a legitimate investigation, Stone snapped. No, Christina countered, calm, controlled. I'm protecting myself from an illegitimate one. Through the monitors, she watched his composure crack, if only for a heartbeat. He turned to Fox, gesturing urgently. Fox looked unconvinced, the first fisher. Then her phone vibrated with a new, encrypted message from an unknown number. Phoenix Op is cover. Data extraction tonight. Stop transfer or lose everything. Christina's pulse spiked. If true, the Phoenix threat wasn't just manufactured theater, it was camouflage for something bigger. Theft. Massive. She dove into the depot's hidden systems, accessing channels no one knew existed. What she found confirmed it. Comms hijacked, terabytes of classified data bleeding from the comms center. The betrayal wasn't past. It was happening right now. Stone barked again over the speakers. "Open the door, Bailey. Final warning." Christina ignored him, broadcasting instead. Her voice cut across secure frequencies, reaching every operator on base. Security breach in comms center. Classified database being extracted under Phoenix cover. Verify server room immediately. Stone's response was instant, frantic. Disregard that message. Bailey's unstable. But the doubt was seated. She saw it ripple in the posture of MPs on the monitors, hesitation in their stance. Cooper's reply came over the net, tight with urgency. Confirmed activity in server room. Stone's credentials in use. That was enough. Christina disengaged the blast shields. The depot doors yawned open. She stepped out, not as Christina the technician, not as Bailey the nobody, but as who she really was. Combat vest strapped, sidearm holstered, eyes hard. The ghost had become flesh again. Stone froze, his mask cracking as MPs turned their eyes between him and her. Fox's hand lingered on his holster, not drawn, but ready. "Sergeant Fox," Christina said, her voice clear, cutting. "Secure the server room, you'll find the evidence there." "Who the hell are you?" Fox demanded. Christina held his gaze, no longer hiding. "Staff Sergeant Christina Bailey, Phantom Regiment, undercover 18 months, investigating leaks that killed my team." The silence was a vacuum, everyone caught in the gravity of revelation. Stone's jaw worked. She's delusional, but his hand edged toward his weapon. Christina's eyes never left him. She saw the twitch, the betrayal of intent. And she knew, in that moment, Stone wasn't just a man protecting his career. He was the leak, the one she'd been hunting since Syria. And she wasn't invisible anymore. Why did Stone's hand freeze halfway to his weapon when Christina stepped into the desert night in full tactical gear? Because the ghost he thought he had cornered wasn't a ghost at all. Christina Bailey no longer looked like a maintenance tech. No grease-stained fatigues, no faded name tape. The woman who emerged from the weapons depot was forged steel, body armor strapped tight, sidearm visible, posture radiating the quiet threat of someone who knew exactly how fast she could end the man standing across from her. Stone's lips curled, but his eyes betrayed him. For the first time since this cat-and-mouse game began, she saw something raw in them. Not suspicion, not calculation, fear. "Sergeant Fox," Christina said, ignoring Stone entirely. "The server room. Now, someone's pulling data under Stone's credentials." Fox's weathered face creased with suspicion. His MPs shifted uncertainly, eyes darting between their intelligence officer and the soldier who'd just blown her cover to pieces. "Who exactly are you?" Fox demanded. Christina's chin lifted, steady. "Staff Sergeant Christina Bailey, Phantom Regiment, serial classified. My team died 18 months ago in Syria because of a leak inside this system. I was sent here to find it." Stone barked a laugh that rang hollow. "She's insane. Phantom Regiment doesn't exist. Look at her, hiding in maintenance, fabricating conspiracies." Christina cut him off, her voice colder than the desert night. "Then you won't mind if we check the server room. If there's nothing there, you win. If there is." Fox's radio crackled before she could finish. Cooper's voice broke through, sharp with urgency. "Security Chief, I'm inside the server room. Extraction confirmed. Classified database copying to external drives. Active session logged under Stone's credentials." The air went heavy. Every MP's head turned, slowly, toward Stone. His face drained of color, composure cracking under the weight of confirmation. "That's impossible," he stammered. "My credentials were compromised." "Convenient," Christina said softly. "Compromised for months, convenient every time you needed cover." Stone's hand twitched toward his holster, desperation leaking into every line of his body. Christina saw it coming before the MPs did. She moved first, closing the distance in a blur. Her hand locked his wrist, torque snapping through his elbow. His weapon clattered to the tarmac. Stone dropped to one knee with a strangled grunt, his face twisting in pain. MPs tensed, hands hovering at their weapons, but Fox barked, "Stand down." For the first time in 18 months, Christina let her real voice slip free. Not soft, not forgettable, but command. "The leak is standing in front of you," she said, her grip tightening until Stone winced. "And he's been selling American lives for 2 years. Fox's radio crackled again. "Security chief, suspect detained in server room," Cooper's voice said. "Private First Class Boyd. Claims he was ordered by Stone to perform an emergency backup." The words punched Christina harder than a bullet. Boyd. No, he was a kid, clumsy with his laces, eager with questions. A boy she'd protected with small corrections and quiet lessons. Not a traitor. Never. Her hold on Stone didn't waver, but her gut twisted. Stone had used Boyd, his trust, his obedience, his innocence. Fox's reply came through, clipped. "Boyd doesn't have clearance." "He does if Stone elevated his credentials," Christina said flatly. Stone's shoulders sagged under her grip, resignation bleeding through the last of his false bravado. "The kid doesn't know anything," he gasped. "I told him it was routine backup." Christina's jaw tightened. "You've been using him like a pawn." Boyd's confusion came through the channel, trembling and raw. I thought I was helping. He said it was urgent. I didn't know." Fox's lined face hardened, anger simmering under control. His eyes cut to Christina. "How long has this been going on?" 2 years, she said. "Systematic. Phoenix was cover for the final extraction." Fox inhaled sharply. The reality was too big to dismiss, too damning. His eyes burned into Stone. "How many operations?" Stone said nothing. Christina answered for him, her voice steady but lined with grief. "Firebase Echo, at least 5 others, dozens of lives, all traded for profit." Fox's jaw clenched, as if he could grind the betrayal to dust. Cooper emerged minutes later, escorting Boyd across the tarmac. The young soldier's face was pale, lips trembling, eyes wide with horror at his unwitting role. "I didn't know," Boyd whispered to Christina, as if she were the only anchor left. "I swear I didn't know." Her voice softened, cutting through his panic. "I know, Private, he used you. You followed orders and he twisted them. That's on him, not you." Boyd's chest shook, but he nodded, clinging to her reassurance like a lifeline. Fox's voice broke the moment. "Lieutenant Commander Stone, you're under arrest for treason, espionage, and conspiracy to aid hostile forces. You have the right to remain silent." Stone jerked under Christina's hold, spitting words through clenched teeth. "You don't understand. This intelligence was already compromised. I was preventing worse outcomes." "By selling it to the highest bidder," Christina snapped, her grip locking his arm until he groaned. Stone's eyes burned with desperate conviction. "By making sure it landed in the right hands. Bureaucrats waste time while enemies move faster. I did what was necessary." The justification tasted like poison. Christina had heard it before, operators dressing betrayal in patriotism. The same twisted logic that had left her team bleeding in Syria. Her voice dropped to a lethal whisper. "Tell me about Firebase Echo." Stone froze. His eyes flicked to hers, widening in recognition. Fear flickered where arrogance had lived. "I don't know what you're talking about." "You sold our mission," she hissed. 5 dead, 2 wounded, 1 missing, me the only survivor. That wasn't bad luck, that was you." Fox stiffened, his pen scratching to a stop. Around them, even the desert air seemed to hold its breath. Stone's protest came too fast, too thin. "I never had access." Christina's smile was cold as steel. "You had clearance for multi-theater operations, access to everything, and you sold it." His silence was louder than confession. Fox's radio crackled again, cutting through the moment. Cooper's voice carried urgency. Fox, you need to hear this. The active session shows administrative override, initiated under Stone's codes. The extraction is automated, still running. Christina's chest went rigid. The fight wasn't over. Stone had built redundancies, automated systems. Even restrained, even exposed, his betrayal was still bleeding through the servers. She released her hold, shoving him into MP's custody. Her eyes locked with Fox. If we don't stop that transfer, everything falls, names, missions, all of it. Fox gave a sharp nod. Then we move, now. As MPs dragged Stone toward confinement, his voice cracked through the night, raw and defiant. You think you've stopped it? You haven't. You'll never stop it. Christina didn't look back. Her eyes found Cooper, then Boyd. One broken by betrayal, the other still bleeding innocence. Her mission wasn't finished, not yet. And she knew the worst truth of all. Stone was only the beginning. Why did the server room lights flicker like a heartbeat as Christina burst through the steel doors? Because the base itself was bleeding out. Inside, the air was cold, recycled, humming with the low roar of fans and the electric pulse of machinery. Racks of servers lined the walls, green and blue diodes blinking in rhythmic defiance. And in the center, 2 MPs already stationed by Cooper, stood the evidence of betrayal. The data stream still active, terabytes of classified intelligence tunneling through encrypted channels, bypassing firewalls like water slipping through cracks in stone. Christina's boots pounded against the raised floor panels. She moved like muscle memory had taken over, years of training flooding back. Maintenance tech no longer. Ghost no longer. Operator again. How long? She barked. 6 minutes, maybe less, Cooper said, his voice tight. His hands hovered near the keyboard, but his eyes flicked to her, waiting for leadership. Christina dropped to one knee, scanning the monitors. The code wasn't random. It was a latticework, meticulous, pre-built for redundancy. If one tunnel closed, 3 more bloomed like Hydra heads. Stone had this prepared for months, she muttered. Can you kill it? Fox asked, standing behind them, his weight heavy with expectation. Christina exhaled slowly. Not kill, but choke. She slid into the terminal, fingers moving with precision. The muscle memory of operations past guided her keystrokes. Shunting processes, creating feedback loops, rerouting data into recursive cycles that ate themselves. The system hissed in protest, servers whining as if alive. Still, the transfer bar crawled forward. Not fast enough, she whispered. Boyd stood frozen near the doorway, pale and trembling, guilt painted across his face. His lips moved before he could stop himself. I can help. Christina looked up sharply. The boy who'd been a pawn was now volunteering to be more. Her instinct screamed no, keep him safe, keep him uninvolved. But something in his eyes stopped her. The desperation wasn't for himself. It was for redemption. What do you know? She asked. Stone had me test last month, Boyd said quickly, words tumbling over each other. Said it was for system resilience. He gave me override codes, different from his own, said to use them if servers froze. Override codes, not in Stone's credentials, hidden backups. Christina's chest tightened. The boy wasn't just a pawn, he was the hidden key. Think, Boyd, she pressed, her voice urgent but controlled. Do you remember the string? He swallowed, nodding shakily. I wrote it down, paper, locker, but I think I remember most of it. Not most, Christina snapped, then softened. Every digit matters, can you recall? Boyd's eyes flicked shut. He muttered under his breath, counting, reciting. His fingers twitched as if typing on invisible keys. Then, haltingly, he began. Alpha 36, Delta 9, Whiskey 442. Christina typed as he spoke, her hands a blur. The system hesitated, flickered. One tunnel collapsed, then another. The progress bar froze at 71%. Then, slowly, it inched backward. Cooper's breath caught. It's working. Boyd swayed, his face pale but lit with a fragile pride. I remembered. Christina met his eyes. For the first time, she let her voice soften. You did more than remember. You stopped it. But even as the words left her mouth, the system roared back, red alarms flooding the monitors. Stone's redundancies weren't finished. Another process surged alive, hidden deeper, locked beyond Boyd's codes. The bar jumped forward again, 72, 73, climbing fast. Christina cursed under her breath. He buried a rootkit. Fox's face tightened. Meaning this doesn't stop until we cut the head off the snake, she said. Stone, Cooper asked. No, Christina whispered, her stomach sinking. Whoever Stone's working for. An hour later, Stone sat cuffed in the interrogation room, eyes hollow but lips curved in a faint smile. He looked like a man who'd already won, even in defeat. Fox paced outside, fists clenched. He's not talking. He doesn't need to, Christina said quietly. The system is talking for him. She pressed a thumb drive into Fox's palm, the logs she'd from the servers. Coordinates, IP shadows, routes across continents. Patterns Stone could never have built alone. See the nodes, she pointed. Not foreign, domestic. He's not just selling to enemies. He's selling through allies, middlemen, private contractors with clearance. Fox swore under his breath. Cooper leaned against the wall, his gaze steady on Christina. If this goes high enough, Stone's just a pawn too. Her chest tightened. He was right, and pawns, willing or not, were always expendable. Just like Boyd. Her eyes found the young private sitting on a bench down the hall, head in his hands, shoulders slumped under the weight of shame. She remembered the fire in his eyes when he rattled off those override codes, the desperate need to matter, to undo what had been done through him. She walked over, crouched low. You saved lives tonight, she said softly. That transfer could burn half our networks. Boyd's voice cracked. I helped him. For months I helped him. Doesn't matter if I stopped it once. It does, Christina said firmly. Because now you know, now you can choose different. He looked up, eyes glistening. How do you live with it, the guilt? Her throat tightened. Images of Echo flooded back, dust, blood, screams, the weight of 5 coffins. She forced her voice steady. You don't. You carry it. And you try to make sure no one else has to. That night, alone in her bunk, Christina stared at the ceiling. The base was quiet, but her mind was For 18 months, she had hidden in shadows, playing ghost to catch a ghost. Tonight, she had stepped back into flesh. And now everyone saw her for what she was, what she had been. The mission wasn't over. The transfer hadn't stopped completely. Stone was only a doorway to something larger, something entrenched, systemic. And in the silence, her phone buzzed. Another encrypted message, no sender. You think you stopped it. You didn't. He was one of many. Next breach already in play. Decide, stay a ghost or burn your cover forever. Her stomach turned cold. She had choices now, dangerous ones. Stay visible, vulnerable, accountable, or vanish again and fight from the shadows. But her eyes flicked to the photo taped inside her locker, a blurry picture of her old team, smiling, alive. She whispered to the ghosts, not this time, no more shadows. Because sometimes survival wasn't about hiding. Sometimes it was about being seen. Why did Fox call her into his office at dawn, before the dust of the Phoenix cover operation had even settled? Because ghosts don't sleep. Christina stood across from him, arms loose at her sides, uniform unmarked by rank. She was still half a rumor, even after everything that had unfolded the night before. Fox's office smelled of burnt coffee and paper, too many late nights, too many lies stacked like reports on his desk. You want me to trust you, Fox said, his voice like gravel. But you've been lying to everyone on this base for 18 months. Christina didn't flinch. I didn't lie, I survived. There's a difference. Fox's eyes narrowed. Why should I believe you now? Because she was tired of hiding. Because the ghosts of Echo still clawed at her lungs. Because Stone's smirk in the interrogation room proved he was only a fraction of what she was sent here to stop. But she didn't say any of that. She said the one thing she knew Fox would respect. Because the breach isn't over. She slid the thumb drive across his desk. Logs, timestamps, digital fingerprints. Stone wasn't working alone. This wasn't a one-man leak. There's a network domestic with access to systems higher than this base. If you stop at him, you miss the truth. Fox's hand hovered over the drive like it might burn him. Then he pocketed it, slow and deliberate. If you're right, he said, this isn't just treason. It's rot at the roots. Christina's silence confirmed it. Out on the flight line, the desert sun had barely broken the horizon. Cooper leaned against an Apache's landing gear, watching her approach. He looked like he hadn't slept either. You going ghost again? He asked. Christina shook her head. No more ghosts. His jaw flexed, something between relief and worry. Then what's the play? We follow the bleed, she said. Data doesn't vanish, it leaves trails. Someone else will pick up Stone's channels. We track that, we find the next link. Cooper studied her face, the weight of her resolve. Fox is going to want control. He can want it, Christina replied. But control doesn't find leaks. It patches holes and pretends the ship isn't sinking. He almost smiled. That sounds like you don't plan on asking permission. She met his gaze steady. I don't. Boyd found her later, sitting alone near the depot, his head bent, his hands fidgeting like he was trying to untangle the guilt from his bones. You should hate me, he blurted when she approached. I don't, she said simply. I helped him, I don't even know how many times. What if there's more? What if his voice broke. Then you keep fighting, she said, crouching to meet his eyes. You made a choice last night. You remembered those codes. You stopped the stream. That matters. His lips trembled. Does it fix it? No, she admitted. Nothing fixes it, but it changes what comes next. For a long moment, the boy just stared at her. Then quietly he asked, so what comes next? Christina felt the weight of the answer press down. She thought of Fox's suspicions, of Cooper's steady gaze, of Stone's laughter in the dark. She thought of her team in Syria, their names carved into her heart. Next, she said, we hunt. That evening, Christina sat with Cooper in the secure comms tent, screens glowing blue and white against the shadows. They sifted through logs, hunting the faint echoes of the transfer's collapse. There, Cooper said, pointing. See the relay point. It didn't terminate, it rerouted. Christina leaned in, studying the patterns. Civilian contractor node, Phoenix, not foreign. He frowned, meaning someone stateside is catching the data. Meaning someone here, she said, her voice low. With contracts with clearance, Stone wasn't selling to outsiders. He was laundering to insiders. Cooper swore under his breath. How do you even fight that? Christina's chest tightened. You don't fight institutions. You fight people. Whoever's holding the other end of this relay, that's who we go after. Fox joined them hours later, his face lined deeper than before. Stone cracked, he said. Christina's head snapped up. What did he give? Fox dropped a folder onto the table. Inside, Stone's scrawled notes, half-legible, frantic. Among the scribbles, names. Some crossed out, some underlined. One circled twice. Colonel Ward, Fox said grimly. The air went cold. Cooper swore again, louder this time. Ward, he's been briefing us every day. He gave the Phoenix orders. Christina stared at the name, bile rising in her throat. She thought of Ward's voice cutting through the briefing room, his calm certainty as he spoke of threats. She thought of how seamlessly Phoenix had distracted the entire base. It was never about Phoenix, she whispered. It was about control. He didn't just cover for Stone, he orchestrated the stage. Fox's voice was low, tight. If we move too fast and we're wrong. We're not wrong, Christina said. But even as she said it, doubt clawed her. What if Stone had planted the name to fracture them? What if Ward was clean and the real leak deeper? Fox studied her long, hard. I'll authorize surveillance, but if this goes public and we're wrong, it'll bury all of us. Christina met his gaze. Better buried for trying than silent for watching. Later in the mess hall, Cooper slid into the seat across from her. The place buzzed with routine chatter, but between them, silence stretched. You're carrying it heavy, he said. Christina's hands tightened on her cup. 5 coffins, Cooper. I swore if I found who did it, I wouldn't stop. His eyes softened. But you don't have to do it alone. She wanted to believe him, wanted to lean into the steady warmth in his voice. But ghosts don't forget. Trust had burned her once before, and the scars still ached. I don't know if I can, she admitted. Then let me prove it, he said. The words lodged in her chest. For the first time since Syria, she felt the dangerous flicker of something she'd buried, hope. But hope was costly, and she wasn't sure she could afford it again. That night, under the hum of servers and the desert wind outside, Christina sat alone, replaying the names on Stone's notes. Ward circled. Others crossed out. She thought of Boyd's question, how do you live with guilt? The answer pulsed inside her. You don't. You carry it and you turn it into fuel. Her phone buzzed again. Another encrypted message. You found one. Do you really want to see the rest? Look closer at the people you salute. Her chest went hollow. Because if Ward was only one name in a larger circle, then the betrayal wasn't just near. It was above. And the higher she climbed, the lonelier it would get. Why did Ward's office light stay on long after midnight, even when the rest of Fort Sandstone lay silent under desert stars? Because secrets never sleep. From the ridge overlooking the command wing, Christina crouched beside Cooper, their scopes aligned on the same glowing window. The base looked peaceful, rows of Apache like steel predators at rest, barracks quiet, sand drifting across floodlit fences. But inside Ward's office, shadows moved. Papers shuffled. A man's silhouette passed back and forth, restless, purposeful. Christina's breath fogged against the eyepiece. He's not reviewing Phoenix reports at this hour. Cooper adjusted his scope. Could be paranoia, could be conscience. Christina shook her head. Men with conscience don't orchestrate cover ops. He's moving pieces. Fox's voice crackled softly over comms. Keep eyes only. No confrontation. If Ward feels heat, he'll vanish into the chain of command. We need proof. Proof. The word scraped Christina raw. Proof hadn't saved her team in Syria. Proof had come too late, after 5 bodies lay zipped in bags. Her voice stayed level. Copy. They tailed Ward for 3 nights, careful, patient. He was meticulous in public, the perfect officer. Crisp uniform, steady hand in briefings, calm reassurance as Phoenix wound down. But at night, Christina saw the fractures. Irregular meetings with civilian contractors in unmarked SUVs, encrypted phone calls at hours no one should be awake, secure drives carried from his office to the comms wing without sign-off. The patterns told their own story. Ward wasn't covering for Stone. He was bigger, higher, the architect. On the 4th night, Christina caught the detail that sealed it. A single tattoo on Ward's forearm, visible as he rolled his sleeves while passing under the corridor lights. A symbol she hadn't seen in years, an insignia she knew too well. Her chest went cold. The same insignia her team had marked as hostile once, in Syria. The same symbol that had haunted her in After Action, photos of Firebase Echo. Cooper noticed her silence. What is it? She lowered her scope, forcing her breath steady. Nothing yet. But inside, the truth throbbed like a wound. Boyd found her the next morning, stumbling into the depot with eyes ringed by sleeplessness. He looked like a boy carrying too much weight for bones not yet hardened. I can't eat, he admitted, voice low. Every time I close my eyes, I see him, Stone telling me it was routine, and I believed it. Christina studied him, seeing a reflection of her younger self, eager, trusting, desperate to belong. That belief wasn't your crime, she said. It was his weapon. His hands twisted. What if I fall for it again? Then you learn faster next time, she said softly. Mistakes don't define you, Boyd. What you do after does. He looked at her, eyes glassy but searching. What are you doing after? Her throat tightened. After, she had no after, only mission, only ghosts. But she said, I'm making sure no one else buries 5 teammates because of a leak. That evening, Fox called them into the secure briefing room. His jaw was tight, his shoulders braced as though carrying weight he couldn't put down. We pulled comms intercepts last night, he said, sliding papers across the table. Ward's voice, coordinating transfers. Civilian contractor confirmed. Code phrases match Stone's notes. Cooper leaned back, whistling low. That's enough to nail him. Fox's eyes flicked to Christina. Not yet. If we move now, command will bury it. They'll call it confusion, bad intel, an overeager sergeant with a grudge. We need undeniable evidence. Christina's pulse throbbed in her ears. How? By catching him in the act, Fox said. The plan was simple in theory, impossible in execution. Ward would make another transfer soon. When he did, Christina and Cooper would intercept, not just logs but physical evidence. Drives, credentials, the exchange itself. Enough that no one up the chain could wash it away. Cooper grinned, though there was no humor in it. Easy. Just step into the lion's den and hope he doesn't bite. Christina didn't smile. He won't bite, he'll shoot. The night came faster than they expected. Ward moved to the comms wing under cover of routine inspections. Christina and Cooper followed, silent shadows, Boyd left behind with Fox on overwatch. Inside the sterile glow of the server room, Ward plugged a drive into the terminal. His posture was calm, almost casual, but his eyes darted, paranoid, alert. He wasn't working for someone. He was working with someone. Christina's hand hovered near her sidearm, breath shallow. Every nerve screamed to move, to end it. But Cooper's hand brushed her arm, steady, grounding. Not yet, he whispered. The intimacy of the touch startled her. How long it had been since anyone had been close without agenda. Her instinct bristled to pull away, to retreat back into the armor of isolation. But she didn't, not this time. Because ghosts didn't feel, and she was tired of being a ghost. Ward's phone buzzed. He answered low, words clipped, rehearsed. Transfer active, 2 minutes. Cooper's eyes flicked to hers. Decision time. Christina drew her weapon. The confrontation was chaos in silence. She stepped forward, voice like steel. Drop it, Colonel. Ward froze. The room seemed to collapse around them, time stretching thin. He turned slowly, eyes calculating, landing on her face with recognition that cut like a blade. Bailey, he said softly, almost like greeting an old friend. I wondered how long until you crawled out of your hole. Cooper flanked left, weapon raised. Hands where we can see them. Ward didn't comply. His lips curled into a smile too knowing, too calm. You think you've caught me, but you've only seen one layer. Cut me down and 3 more stand up. Christina's pulse thundered. Then I'll cut them down too. His gaze flicked to her forearm, where her sleeve had slipped, revealing the edge of her tattoo. His eyes narrowed with recognition. And then he laughed. The sound was cold, hollow, echoing off the sterile walls. You don't even know the truth about your own insignia, do you? Her breath caught, the room tilted, shadows twisting. What do you mean? She demanded. Ward's smile was razor-sharp. You've been chasing ghosts that were born inside your own house. And in that moment, Christina knew Ward wasn't just betraying them. He was tied to the very roots of the unit she once bled for. The betrayal wasn't just near. It was home. Why did Ward's smile linger even with 2 rifles trained on his chest? Because men who think they own the truth never fear bullets. Christina's finger flexed near the trigger, her breathing sharp in her throat. Ward stood perfectly still, the drive blinking in the server like a heartbeat, his eyes locked on hers with the intimacy of an old betrayal. You want to believe I sold you out, he said softly, almost tender. But the truth is worse. You were never betrayed by me. You were betrayed by the very insignia you wear. Christina's stomach nodded. She had seen the tattoo on his forearm, the same symbol her team had flagged before Echo burned. A mark she thought belonged to enemies in shadows overseas. Now it was etched into her own command. You're lying, she said, but her voice cracked against the edges of doubt. Ward's smirk deepened. Am I? Phantom Regiment sounds noble, untouchable, but units like yours don't get formed without purpose. Disposable assets, sent into fire so the higher tiers can learn what burns and what survives. His words sliced deep. The ghosts of Echo pressed in, 5 faces, 5 bodies carried home. She had blamed Stone, the leak, the nameless shadow. But what if the betrayal was written into the mission before it began? Cooper's voice cut through the static in her head, sharp and steady. Don't listen to him, he's spinning you. But Ward pressed harder, eyes drilling into hers. You were marked from the start, Bailey. Every bullet, every loss, it wasn't chance. It was design. You were the experiment. Her chest hollowed. Echo, Syria, the screams, the silence after, was he right? No, she couldn't let it be true. If it was, then all their sacrifices meant nothing. Shut it down, she said, voice flat. Ward's lips twitched. You don't get it. Shut me down and another will take my place. You can't kill a system. Maybe not, Christina said. Her hands tightened on the grip. But I can stop you. The silence stretched. Ward's smirk faltered just for a moment. Then he moved, fast, reaching for the drive. 2 shots cracked. Cooper's round hit the desk, wood splintering. Christina's hit the floor near Ward's hand, close enough to freeze him mid-reach. Hands up, Cooper barked. Ward froze, the arrogance draining from his face as MPs stormed the room behind Fox, weapons drawn. The colonel's smirk shattered under the weight of cold steel and handcuffs. Colonel Ward, Fox growled, you're under arrest for treason. Ward's eyes flicked to Christina as the cuffs snapped shut. His final words, low and venomous, clung to her bones. You'll never know how deep it goes. The drive was secured, the transfer severed. Ward dragged away into silence. But victory didn't feel like triumph. It felt like exhaustion, like ash. Outside the comm's wing, dawn stretched across the desert sky, pale orange bleeding into blue. Christina leaned against the concrete wall, the cool air cutting into her lungs. Cooper joined her quiet. For a moment, they just stood, side by side, shadows long on the tarmac. You okay? He asked finally. She almost laughed at the question. Okay? After 5 coffins, 18 months in hiding, Stone's betrayal, Ward's words poisoning her past. But she didn't laugh. She just said, I'm here. And somehow, that was enough. Later that morning, Fox gathered them in the debriefing room. Boyd sat stiffly at the end of the table, his hands folded tight, eyes still carrying the weight of guilt. The higher-ups will want to sanitize this, Fox said, sliding sealed folders across the table. They'll call Ward a lone wolf, Stone a corrupt outlier. They'll bury the network to protect the institution. Christina's jaw clenched. And the rest? Fox's eyes softened, though his voice stayed hard. That's not in our control. She knew he was right. She had lived long enough to understand. Truth rarely walked into daylight. Sometimes it stayed in shadows, carved onto the bones of the people who survived. Boyd's voice cracked the silence. Does that mean none of this mattered? Christina turned to him, seeing the boy who had been used, the boy who had chosen to remember codes when it counted. It mattered, she said firmly, because you stopped it, because you chose right when it cost you. He blinked, eyes wet, shoulders shaking under the fragile weight of redemption. That night, Christina sat alone on the flight line, watching the Apache gleam under floodlights. The desert wind carried sand across the tarmac, whispering like voices of the dead. She thought of her team, their laughter, their silence, their ghosts. Ward's words haunted her. You were the experiment. But she refused to let their lives be reduced to data points. They were not experiments. They were brothers, sisters, flesh and spirit, courage and sacrifice. And she was still here. Not invisible, not erased. Alive. Cooper's footsteps broke the silence. He sat beside her, not close, not far, the way people do when they respect the space between wounds. You ever think about what comes after? He asked. She let the question hang in the air, heavy. After. For so long, her life had been only mission, only ghosts. After didn't exist. But maybe it could. I don't know, she admitted. Maybe not being a ghost anymore. Cooper nodded, his voice soft. Then don't be. They sat in silence as the sky shifted from black to blue, the first hint of light brushing the horizon. In the weeks that followed, investigations unfolded, hearings convened, papers sealed. Ward's name would never appear in headlines. Stone's treason would be packaged as anomaly. The deeper network would go on breathing, somewhere in shadows Christina might never reach. But Boyd began to eat again. Cooper stayed steady, his quiet presence a tether. Fox carried the files like scars no one else could see. And Christina. She stopped hiding. No more grease-stained uniforms, no more silence at the edge of the briefing table. She walked as herself again, not a ghost, not a shadow, a soldier who had lived, who had lost, who had chosen to carry it all. Because ghosts fade. But dignity, even silent, leaves a mark. Sometimes betrayal is too deep to uproot. Sometimes the system doesn't change. Sometimes justice never reaches daylight. But sometimes, survival isn't about winning the war. It's about choosing to live in spite of it. And sometimes, dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.